The following may contain offensive language, adult humor, and or content that some viewers may find offensive. The views and opinions expressed by any one speaker does not explicitly or necessarily reflect or represent those of Mark Radulich or W2M Network. Please listen with caution, or don't listen at all.
Hooray for Hollywood, where stars are living large, in mansions with their servants and their credit cards in charge, with fame that's fleeting, but the egos never change, where everyone's a genius, except the ones who really arrange. Hooray for Hollywood, where the scandals always sell, where every whispered secret is a new tabloid's tell. Oh, how we adore the endless red carpet galore. Hooray for Hollywood, where less is always more.
Yes, indeedy, less is always more here on Ye Olde Damn You Hollywood. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, you, my pretties, are listening to a Radulich Broadcasting premiere podcast, Damn You Hollywood. And here's your host, Robert Winfrey. Yay!
Yay, indeed. We're going to be talking about death.
Yay!
Hooray, finally!
And cancer.
And heart attacks.
This is not at all material we've covered before on this show in some capacity or another. But tonight, everybody, we are talking about Final Destination Bloodlines, because we've entered the phase where we're desperately now trying to make early 2000s nostalgia a thing. It ain't going to work, but we're trying.
90s for life.
Final Destination Bloodlines is a 2025 American supernatural horror film directed by Zach Lipovsky and Adam Stein and written by Guy Busick, as opposed to Guy Incognito, and Laurie Evans Taylor. Based on a story developed by them and Jon Watts, it is the sixth installment in the Final Destination film series, following Final Destination 4 from 2011. It stars Kaitlyn Santa Juana as a college student who inherits visions of a previous premonition that averted a deadly structural failure
We'll get to it.
in 1968 from her dying grandmother, and is warned that death is coming for her family. Also starring Teo Briones, Richard Harmon, Owen Patrick Joyner, Anna Lore, Brec Bassinger, and Tony Todd appearing in supporting roles. It's the last actually featured appearance of Tony Todd, otherwise known as the Candy Man. This was originally supposed to be released on HBO Max, but in March of 2024, Warner Brothers announced that the film would be instead receive a theatrical release, as they've done with many of their straight-to-Max things, because that company was run by a schizophrenic starfish at one point.
Still is in their live streaming department.
Bloodlines.
Who else would sign AEW Collision for a deal at this day and age?
Bloodlines was released in the U.S. by Warner Brothers on May 16, 2025. Critical acclaim from the critics, becoming the best reviewed film in the franchise, and grossed, and we'll get to this in a little bit, $105.7 million worldwide, broke all kinds of records. And speaking of breaking records and hearts, ladies and gentlemen, from the great state of Missouri, ladies and gentlemen, the siren herself, Mick Wanamaker. How do you do, sir? Ma'am.
I'll take either.
You know, that happens to me. That used to happen to me at work. Is that the guys would be so used to speaking to female nurses, I would get called ma'am a lot and go, "Oh, really?" So. How are you? It gives you
an ego boost a little bit. I'm fine. I'm tired. I worked today.
Oh, boo. Well, we kept you up late last night.
Yeah.
Your rowdy
self.
Last night, Mick was on
It was fun.
She was on the Metal Hammer of Doom jukebox. We were talking Crowbot and many other things. And if you would like to know what the many other things are, check the link in the podcast description. And speaking of websites and links.
Speaking of links in the description.
Yes, ladies and gentlemen, he's here without his props. But that's okay, because we love what the man says with his mind. Ladies and gentlemen, Zachary Strobel, how do you do, sir?
Very well, thank you.
So I didn't get a chance to do this before, but Mick, Zach, Mick.
Hi.
Hi.
Yeah, I don't think we've been on a podcast together.
No, this is like the party where you invite two sets of friends and they have to meet for the first time. And quite frankly, I'm a little scared.
It's like
I
a
won't wait.
crossover.
Yes. All right. So let me stick with you for a sec, Zach. You're normally on either like Disney stuff or cartoon Disney stuff. And here you are on a gory, violent, somewhat comedic horror movie review. Why? Why are you here, Zach?
Well, number one, to surprise you, of course, but also because I'm not a horror guy. If I want to be scared, I'll watch the news. But other than that, I don't know how I got into Final Destination, but I'm not really into, like, when I like horror, I usually like more psychological horror, and I feel like in the
Just keep going.
and basically, I just really, I found out it's like, my friend was like, dude, this whole series is like gory Looney Tunes. Like everyone dies in like really, really like complex mousetrappy kind. I'm like, okay, I gotta check it out. And then I was like, you know what? I think I had my like wisdom teeth out, so I think I forget what year it was. Probably I just binged all the movies. And I was just like, dude, this is good, because I feel like a lot of horror movies at the time were trying to be all like, it's gross. This is what people's insides look like outside. And
throw it right in the screen.
like that. And like a clown thing. Like, you know.
Yes, no, I got the imagery.
Okay. You know when you go to circus. But it was yeah, I was just really like them, and I'm like, I can't wait for another 15 years till they make a new one. And I didn't have to wait that long because it was only 14 years. So so that's why I saw you smile, Robert. I saw that. But yeah.
All right. So, Mick, you are a horror person, and just as an aside, the brief preview of Thursday, I did finally watch Control Freak today. I have words. But you are a big horror nut. Where does Final Destination rank for you in your fandom of horror, and have you seen the previous 5?
I'll start with, I have seen all of them. I am a big fan of gore. I am what you call the gore whore. So anything that has that shock value, I want to see people get murdered in very interesting ways. Like today I decided to sport my House 1,000 Corpses shirt.
Nice.
I only see 2 corpses, but okay.
Oh my god. It's gonna be a long night.
I mean, Final Destination was never really on my like top 5, but like I still enjoy them.
Remember when Robert Winfrey? Remember when we did the Wong Road to Ruin? And okay, I can't do the voice anymore. And we reviewed Final Destination because it was on the short list of horror movies I could actually tolerate.
I remember Benjamin Cologne's nice title card for that, where he references Mousetrap, the game. It's actually really good.
So yeah, that Long Road to Ruin was typically me and Sean Comer, but that was one of the ones where Sean had a night off or a hiatus or whatever. So Robert stepped in, and I think it was like every October I wanted to focus on a horror franchise. So that year I picked Final Destination, and yeah, I had heard about this will be the final thing before we go into the plot. I had heard about the log scene, the highway log scene from Final Destination 2, such to the point that when my son wanted to watch one of the Final Destination movies so that he could feel prepared for Bloodlines, I was like, there's 2. No need. I showed him, I went straight to 2. I was like, there's no reason to see 1, and there's no reason to see the rest of them. If you need to see one movie, see 2. It's the best. And his reaction to 2 was, this isn't really scary. And the way it's been talked about, I expected more out of the log scene, but had I seen it cold with no explanation, that is a very fun scene to watch, Robert. The way that it is shot, we don't need to go into a big long thing about it, but I think if there's one thing that made Final Destination sort of set its place in the zeitgeist, it's the way in which the freneticness of that log highway multiple death scene. It is like the ECW opening medley, which Rob gets the reference and the other two completely lost. But for the rest of the wrestling fans out there, I definitely got to laugh.
Hey, Mark, how long ago did ECW go under?
Why must you be this way?
So you can feel old.
Oh, that's fair. No, that's fine. I was just like I thought you were telling me like shaming me into not making that reference, and I'm like, why?
No.
For the other 50-year-olds watching this who watch wrestling, they just got to laugh out of that. I'll tell you about the ECW medley later, Mick. Go ahead, Robert.
You're referencing something that's been gone for like I can't quite say 40.
Well,
but
first the dinosaurs came, but then they turned into oil.
well, the problem with the dinosaurs was they trusted Paul Heyman with their planetary management, and that just didn't go well.
All the dinosaurs are on the moon.
Your thoughts on the log scene, sir?
Yeah, you're right. You know, the first Final Destination, just to do a little bit of history real briefly. It's written by a couple of people who did a lot of work on the X-Files. And that comes across pretty well because there's a really wicked sense of humor to a lot of the Final Destination stuff, especially the first couple anyway. And yeah, they build these just like horrible Rube Goldberg machines of just the worst accidents you could imagine. And it's tied together with an aesthetic that got played a lot around this time. Again, we're talking like late 90s to early 2000s. This is when you get, you know, Final Destination, The Faculty, I Know What You Did Last Summer.
Mm-hmm.
Scream.
Another one we're gonna have to revisit this summer because they're coming out with another I Know You Did Last Summer. But please continue.
Yep.
Yeah. They all tend to do the same thing. Like I'm going to date myself horribly, but if you were walking down the aisles of the movie rental place, all these kinds of movies had the same cover. You had all the teens in like a V going backwards, and then
like they were migrating south for the winter.
Yeah, you have their faces like set going back, and then you have like if it's a 2-word title, you have 1 and 1. And they all had this. They all had this the same way like the Marvel movies all have the same poster nowadays.
Mm-hmm.
With very few exceptions. Like the vast majority of them are like copy paste into a format. These all had that same format. And again, for visual. So if you walked by one of those, you knew exactly what you were getting there. But one gets a little bit of like cult following because it's kind of funny. Again, it's got a sense of humor about it. 2, like part of that big opening highway crash is in the trailer.
Yeah.
Like enough to let you know this is what you're going to see. And then when you watch,
like watching the White House blow up on Independence Day.
Yeah.
That was in the trailer. Everyone was like, that's what we're going for. I don't give a shit what else happens in this movie. That's what I want to see.
It was lots of fun.
Yes.
They were also good enough to not show the entire thing, but enough to let you know, like, this is our big thing.
Yeah.
And yeah, like, there's a running gag around this that one scene, if you watched that in theaters at the time, you don't drive behind a lumber truck anymore.
Unless you're promoting the 6th movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which we'll get to some of my issues with that about 6 later, but then it just kind of perpetuates under its own momentum a little bit after 2.
Yeah.
More so than like a lot of just really great ideas. With the exception of 5. 5 has a genuinely nice twist ending.
I was going to say, one of the commenters here, I'm guessing it's a friend of Zach's, RetroCat1930. He was saying that it's kind of like Saw. And I said, yeah, that's another one that was reviewed on here through Long Road to Ruin. And the thing about the parallel between Saw, and I'm going to get Zach and Mick to weigh in on this, and then we're going into the plot synopsis, is The Purge 2, to a certain degree, though less so, is that it stops being about a story as such and more of, well, what are we going to do this time? What bigger trap? What bigger purge? What bigger, death scene can we do to top the last one? It becomes like Slayer trying to write a new album. Like, well, what are we going to do to differentiate ourselves from the last album? Nothing. Everyone wants the same Slayer album for decades.
Because we're Slayer, for God's sake.
Slayer!
We don't talk to our audience.
So much so that we break up, and then...
Yes. Zach, did you want to weigh in here? You have anything you want to add? And then Mick?
Yeah, just as Final Destination, just as a series, I like the premise. It's flawed, but I do like it. It's the slasher movie without the slasher. I feel like, because it's more like a force.
I was gonna say it's almost a parallel in that sense to like a Nightmare on Elm Street, where how do you defeat this thing that isn't, it doesn't bleed. We can't kill it.
No,
You don't know what the rules are to this thing yet.
Yeah, it's pretty much like you can't stop it, because let's say I'm at Vegas, let's say I'm blowing all my money. It's like I could put all on these stupid teenagers or death. I'm betting all my money on death, because it's pretty much like it's
a minus 5,000 in the sports book.
Yeah, so basically it's
and
not.
Yet it still fails on one occasion.
Yeah, but what I'm trying to say is basically it was basically what you're doing is they're not trying to like defeat death. Maybe sometimes they are, but they're trying to like see how long they can keep going.
Yeah.
But when I say it's flawed, it's like death is like, I seem to have messed up. Maybe instead of these, I could go about this one or two ways. I can give all these stupid teenagers massive heart attacks instantaneously, or I can make these really clever Rube Goldberg mousetrap kind of ways they can die. Well, I'm pretty dumb, so I will go with the second option.
I love the fact, Mick, that death is portrayed in these movies as a performance artist.
Yes.
Well, a performance artist, and there's two things about this. One, again, is the sense of humor that plays into a lot of this. It's a really wicked sense of humor, but it's there. And again, the earlier ones are written by guys who did a lot of X-Files work, and X-Files has a wonderful sense of humor. So you get that comes through, but it's a little bit like, oh, you screwed with my plan. I could kill you in your sleep. Or you get to
on your head.
Death is a petty bitch. Mick, take the last word here, and then we'll move on.
I liked that comment about the parallels between Saw and that, because I never thought about it, but it does. I do see the parallel there. Saw is definitely my top 3, so I understand that it gets really repetitive with movies like these, trying to be the most extreme movie.
For more on that, listen to Mark and I review the Saw movies.
I've never seen Saw.
What?
I have a deep love for the first one.
Yeah, you have to appreciate what they did for the first one.
Then, after the first 3, it gets dicey.
All right. Let's get into the plot synopsis. And now this is the part of the movie. This is the part of the show where Robert takes us on a trip inside his mind. But we're going to close that door and open a new one here. So thanks to the good people at Dorian and Mac for the plot synopsis.
Set in the present day, Final Destination Bloodlines centers around a bright, haunted college student named Stefani. She begins experiencing disturbing visions and nightmares of a 1960s high-rise tower collapse. It's an event she has no direct connection to. Those dreams turn out to be more than subconscious anxiety, and Stefani learns that her grandmother, Iris, narrowly escaped that disaster decades ago by skipping work that day, unintentionally cheating death. Stefani and a small group of friends and family find themselves at the center of an inexplicable series of events that unite past and present survivors, all of whom have cheated death. Bloodlines takes a deeper dive into the mythology of the Final Destination universe, expanding on death's master design, seeking to claim everyone who evaded their fate. This film also features the return of William Bloodworth, who was the coroner and harbinger of doom in all the previous movies, played once again by Tony Todd in his last appearance as the character. With a pinch of salt, Bloodlines presents itself with a hint of finality, as though this film might mark the franchise's final destination.
All right. Mick.
I don't know what just happened. Where did we go?
That was cool.
He did a good job. Let's see if we just didn't get our stream nerfed by YouTube, who thinks we're showing porn or something. Anyway, speaking of which, Mick, go ahead and tell us what you thought of this movie.
I really enjoyed it. Like, I had a weird opinion on it when I started seeing trailers for it. I was like, they really didn't need a 6th one, because I really like how they wrapped up the 5th one. I felt like it was the perfect circle, and then they had a montage at the end, and it was great. But after seeing the 6th one, I feel like I liked the information that it provided. So I've heard a lot of theories that Bloodworth was death.
Mm-hmm.
And that kind of concludes, like, that puts him in the universe and explains why he is the way he is, which that was a good way to do it. All the piercing things, I have to bring this up. Oh my God, that MRI machine. I am never getting an MRI, ever. I'm never getting near an MRI machine.
You just take out all the metal before you go into it. It's.
Let me tell you how my son said that was the worst scene, and not the worst, like horrible, like worst, like ouch, because I think I had averted my eyes slightly, so he goes, I don't need to see someone's dick being ripped off via piercing. And I was like, "Oh, that happened?" And he was like, "Yes, Father."
Yeah,
Yep.
Look, as soon as the nipple rings started coming out, I knew like he's gonna have some kind of genital.
Yeah.
He's got the old Prince Albert down there or something.
Yeah, it wasn't in my visits because I was averting my eyes somewhat. And so he told me about it afterwards. I'm like, "Oh, I missed that detail." Go ahead, Mick.
I thought Iris was really funny too, because like I understand why, like how guarded she was, because she's been beating death for decades.
Right.
But I loved her attitude of like the potted plant almost caught on fire or something, and then she was like, "Not today, not today."
And it turns out that was just that was Chekhov's potted plant because it fires later.
Yeah.
Pretty sneaky.
Just deciding that she was like, you know what? I've lived this long. It's your turn now, and then fucking dies.
Well,
like,
seeing is believing, kaplat.
You're gonna want to step back.
It's so great.
She's like, "Oh, you see it too? Okay. Good luck with that." that her attitude was so funny. I think one of the things I like about Final Destination is the soundtracks usually are really good, but this one I didn't like as much.
Okay. Why is that?
So I don't know. Maybe because it was like they try to tie in the 60s thing, but like I missed the hardcore soundtracks that they usually put on it.
Okay. Like the heavy metal songs?
Yeah.
Okay.
The other ones, again, this is something of as a product of their time, they do lean heavier. Well, with the exception of the first one, where Death's theme song is "Bad Moon Rising."
Yeah.
No, it's not. Is it?
No.
I can't remember. It's been a minute. No, because they start with that one. They start with that one here, but what is it in? I forget what it is, and it's gonna bug me now.
I'm gonna look it up because I think I see it. I think I saw it on a playlist.
Dust in the Wind?
No,
that was the 5th one.
Yeah,
that was they played it in the 6th one too. Or
yeah,
referenced it.
they go through all those songs in the beginning when they're dial through the radio. Like you actually hear Death's theme from each one of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I liked that touch. I liked all the callbacks. Like if you looked through the background, there was like everywhere.
Hang on, I'm looking it up. Let her continue.
You could see callbacks to all the movies and this throughout the entire 6th movie, and I thought that was really cool. Because then if you just caught like the 180 everywhere, no, I enjoyed it. I was very happy with it. I'd probably watch it again. It's
It might have been. It might have been "Bad Moon Rising" by Creedence Clearwater.
Yeah, that sounds familiar.
It was whatever song it was. The artist died in a plane crash. I remember that.
That's John Denver.
Yes.
I think it's I was gonna say I think it's a John Denver song, but I can't remember which one. It's not Country Roads, is it?
Oh, please let it be "Leaving on a Jet Plane."
No.
That's gonna drive us nuts.
All right. Well, I'm gonna let Zach give his review, and you guys can figure it out. Go ahead, Zach. What do you think of the movie?
So I thought it was. I felt like it was like
Rocky Mountain High.
That's it.
Keep going, Zach.
So I mean, I don't have my book with me, but actually, I do like. I feel like this one, like it is obviously more competent, and it is. And this is gonna sound really weird, but honestly, I actually, after seeing this movie, you know, guys, I'm gonna be real with you. I'm gonna put on my big boy glasses. You know what?
Hang on. This is a thing he does. He's very punny.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, actually, no. Actually, this isn't a pun. I was gonna. Well, actually, I don't like the reflection. Never mind. Go away.
Oh my God.
Life is precious, guys, and it can end at any moment. And that's why you should take advantage of it. And that's what I really kind of took away from this movie. Like the other ones, it was just like, how can they all die in the game Mousetrap? But the other ones, but this movie actually made it more like, I don't know. It was like, it was more. It took it more seriously, but it's still. I could still say this is still the 6th installment. I really like. It was very. Like even the 5th one, which people arguably hey that one's the best. I mean, still had like this is like if you took the 5th one, but like made the dialogue and the acting a lot better. Like it was very much the most competent, but it still had that sense of humor that I really like from these. Because I mean, because it was nice to see. I thought they were gonna like really update it and be like some guy would die like taking a selfie or like doing a TikTok dance, but they didn't do it. It actually felt.
Wait for 7.
Yeah.
No, I really liked it.
This is how we get trending on TikTok now, is death during your dance.
They're making a new movie that's like that.
I'm sure. And saw a trailer for the new Megan movie, and she's like Mission Impossible diving into. What are we doing here?
What are we doing here?
I can't wait for the new Megan, where they've completely abandoned the premise. It's a doll. Keep going, Zach.
But anyway, well, originally, before that wonderful narration, I was gonna keep interrupting Robert and make jokes about like puns and stuff. So thank you for throwing off my groove. But I thought it was a really good movie. I thought it was actually a friend of mine actually met Tony Todd like a month before he passed away. He was at a con here in Arizona, and he just was like super nice, and no one knew that he was about what happened to him. Mm-hmm. So
I've never heard anyone have a bad interaction with Tony Todd.
No, he's a gentle giant. But what I heard about it was, I heard he actually, I don't know, I like the scene with Bloodworth because it didn't feel, I mean, yeah, it did. It was a nice send-off. It moved the story forward. It showed that like his relationship with the series, like Nick said, was about like him not being deaf, but also like being part of the universe. And it just, when he said, you know what, I'm done, I'm retiring, I'm going to enjoy my life. I mean, both in the movie and in real life. I mean, that kind of hit hard. I mean,
well, that whole last bit he does is unscripted. The director just told him, look in the camera, say whatever you want to say to the fans of this franchise and, you know, the people who've been with you. And he said, okay, I got you. And he dropped a bit of a bomb on us.
Yeah. I was gonna make jokes. They're a little out of order, but here they are. I don't know, what did they call the movie I know it wasn't the Space Needle. What was it called again?
The Skyview.
Skyview.
Legally distinct Space Needle.
They should have called it the IKEA Tower.
Hang on. Hey, if we're doing this, let's do it right.
Okay, well, you could say that.
So it would be the Space Needle.
What else? I'll try to keep it. I'll try to make it to. I have like 400 jokes, but I'll make it to like the top 5 to make it for the mercy of you guys and to move this along.
With it. Yes, get on with it.
Okay, so number 2. I guess you could say this. This movie did. That view was to die for. Last one. With the vending machine. I don't know when this movie took place, but you could obviously tell spring has sprung. But to conclude, I give it a 180 out of 100. It was logs of fun and a bloody good time. Okay, I'm done.
Alrighty. I got the biggest laugh out of this movie, and it would be the last time I felt happy and comfortable in the 90, 100, 10 minutes that this movie was. When they dropped the piano on the kid, Looney Tunes, I laughed hard, like
Oh, yeah, that was
embarrassing.
good.
So,
Oh, come on. I would have sworn that you would have cracked a laugh about Eric's not, the biological son that and he goes like, "Wait, so who's my dad?" "Oh, it's Jared, whatever." Like, is that why you always wanted to play catch with me?
I laughed at that line too, but nothing is funnier than seeing an actual human get hit by a piano.
It's
And while
true.
I don't approve of killing children on screen or in real life for that matter, in that order, I will say they made the kid a sufficient enough dick that killing him with the piano and then taking it back because that's this movie.
If there was someone else's death who we could have seen on screen, like older version, I would have preferred his.
Yeah. I'll tell you what, it made me remember back to when we first started doing horror on Damn You Hollywood, because we hadn't done too many. We would occasionally do like like an M. Night Shyamalan or something like that. But I remember specifically, I remember when it was, I believe it was one of the Saw movies or Spiral, one of the two, which is a Saw movie.
I think it was Spiral we reviewed first from that franchise here.
Yeah, either way.
That or the second, that or Saw 9, because 10 was the most recent one.
Yeah, I feel like it was the Saw that precedes the Spiral movie, because that comes after. In any case,
the terrible one, the absolutely awful one with like the lasers at the end and the terrible.
A terrible Saw movie.
Because I don't think I'd actually ever, because I didn't do the Saw review. That was you and Sean.
Yep.
So that was the very first time I'd ever seen a Saw movie. And because I'm not into horror and I'm not into people being mutilated, this is not my thing. I don't enjoy it. I was forcing myself to go see the movie for the purposes of review and to stretch my boundaries, and so I wouldn't have to hear the bullies that I work with that call themselves my friends tease me relentlessly about not watching horror movies anymore. That's for me. That's the violin. So anyway, the point of me bringing that story up is how tense I was through the entire movie, because I didn't know when another person was going to get mutilated. I didn't know how they were going to get mutilated, and I don't want to see anyone get mutilated. And here I am, set for 90 minutes of watching people get mutilated. Then I saw what the Saw movies were, and I go, oh, it's 20 minutes of people being mutilated, and the rest of it's a cop movie. Cool, I can do this. I'm not that big of a baby. Watching this.
Spiral especially.
Yes. Yeah, very much Spiral.
Spiral in the first one, just almost no actual graphic content.
Watching this one, I had a very similar viewing experience where because these scenes are fairly lengthy, I was very tense for a lot of the movie. I have over the years gotten used to a lot of gore. There's things I can live with. There's things at this point, because I'm just so numb, that they don't bother me anymore. The thing that's still, and Robert remembers this from when we reviewed Evil Dead Rise, the thing, and I don't remember where I last talked about this, but it was last night on Metal Hammer Review Jukebox. I can't deal with glass in the mouth at all. None. Zero.
That whole barbecue scene was just like the worst for you.
I have sat through a lot of movies. I have sat through a lot of bad movies. I didn't pee the entire 4 hours of The Brutalist. I got up and walked out of that of Bloodlines during the barbecue scene. I came back. I could not leave my girlfriend with my 2 kids and be like, "Fuck y'all." I'll let Robert carry the review. No, I went back in. But when they kept focusing on the glass, and I knew the glass was going in somebody's mouth, I'm like, nope.
And then it didn't.
Because so Jonas had to tell me like it was a total fake out. But I thought the glass was going in the mouth, like the chick in Evil Dead Rise, where I almost vomited on Kelsey. So I wasn't going through that again. So I ran away like a pansy, and I came back in, and I sat down. And by that point, it was over.
At that point, he'd taken a lawnmower to the face.
Yes, so I heard. So a lot of it is not too much for me to handle, but it definitely kept me very tense, and like I was kind of exhausted by the time the movie was over, because I thought it was too much for me. And I think the movie, I think the movie does these things effectively. It definitely gives you what you want in terms of visceral, grisly death. And every scene is just long enough. I don't think any scene overstays its welcome. I don't think I ever at any point, and this is an important distinction with a movie like this, I don't think at any point during any scene I was going, get on with it. Like one of Zach's jokes. It was more of like, I was waiting to see how it would play out. Like, and one of the things I really liked about this movie was the constant redirections that they were doing. So again, they are completely lampshading that glass in the mouth, and then he steps on it instead. They are absolutely lampshading getting the vending machine dropped on the one brother, and instead they just set up the spring later to kill him when the MRI machine gets turned up to nuclear. Like, that's all fun stuff, and I'll give credit where credit's due. I mean, this is not a deep movie, so I try to find interesting craft elements where I can, and I think those kinds of redirections were a lot of fun and kept the movie flowing in a nice way. The last thing I'll say about this, and then I'll give it over to Robert. I think the thing I like best about this movie, more so than any of the other Final Destination movies, especially after having watched 2, everything feels compartmentalized in the Final Destination movies. Like, it's kind of like an SNL skit where an episode of SNL where in every skit somebody dies. There isn't a big dramatic narrative thread through a lot of the Final Destinations. It's just, in this scene we kill everybody, then it turns out it's a hallucination. So in the next scene we kill the dumb blonde, and in the next scene we kill the dumb boy, and in the next scene we kill the black kid, and finally in the last scene our brunette girl saves the day and death is thwarted. And that it rinse repeat. And I don't necessarily feel like I'm being told a story so much as I'm being shown a gonzo film of death. Here I actually liked the narrative arc of this thing. There was an arc with the mother and the daughter, and they were reconnecting. You had, this sort of family legacy. It's just a general story of lots and lots of people were saved the day that this blonde girl had a premonition and saved everybody from this collapsing structure, such to the point that it spread like a disease. And now, all of these movies are the documenting of death trying to clean up the mess this blonde chick created, which I think was an interesting take on the franchise, and one where the object is to kill as many people in as many graphic ways as possible. So I think, given that assignment, I thought the humans who handled the script handled it deftly. And considering this was meant for a streaming service like HBO Max, I'm really surprised at the quality of this, because we've seen on the low end, the House Party remake, where this was meant to go straight to HBO streaming, and it is just above pornography. There was
it could be lower.
I suppose. We've reviewed a couple of things on here that actually made it to streaming or were meant for streaming and, got a theatrical release. And I remember us saying, and I can't remember which one's right on the tip of my tongue, Robert, where it was supposed to be a streaming movie, but it ended up in theaters and it sucked balls. And we were like, this, Red One being a really good example of this, but there's another one I was thinking
that would be one.
Where it's clear this thing was made for the small screen and it doesn't belong on the big screen. It actually looks worse by magnifying it that way. And this one doesn't suffer that. Outside of the fact it's a no-name cast with a bunch of nobodies, this actually feels like a movie meant for the big screen and to be enjoyed on the big screen. We saw it in IMAX. Good stuff. Robert?
There was...
Oh, yeah, go ahead, Zach.
Oh, I actually was waiting with my friend because we were waiting for the post-credit scene, because thanks, Marvel.
Yeah,
I was waiting for Nick Fury to show up.
I said, my friend was like, what are you waiting for, Zach? And I'm like, see the real villain of the movie. And then it showed the Warner Brothers logo. And I was like...
David Zaslav comes out with a bloody apron.
Yeah, I just wanted to throw that in there.
Alexis would have loved that. All right, go ahead, Robert.
Zaslav in the Leatherface apron slams the door shut to send us out of the theater. I enjoyed a lot of this movie. I think I've been trying to figure out my struggles with it, and I got a couple. One, and I don't know that you can get around this in the modern age, but the CGI deaths wore on me a little bit by the end. Like, we couldn't have thrown one or two practical effects in here for the death. Like I would have appreciated that, just personally speaking. It's a minor gripe. Because again, you watch some of the old. I mean, the original has. Oh, what's her name? For some reason, I'm thinking Demi Moore, but I don't think it is. There's a teacher in that one who just dies horribly by being stabbed repeatedly, accidentally.
Wasn't that his girlfriend?
I think so. No, it's not Demi Moore, but it's kind of a lookalike for her. Someone who gets a lot of roles as like a Demi Moore type. And I can't remember her name for the life of me.
I'm thinking it's this teacher from The Substitute, who's I made that joke already.
But she gets like a kitchen knife falls onto her while she's partially on fire. And then trying to get it out, it winds up like just stabbing her a couple. But it's all done practically, so there's a little bit added level of like both humor and visceral reaction to it. I would have liked at least one of those to be present here instead of all of them being a CGI kind of mess. Like,
can we give credit where credit's due? People falling out of the sky view looked better than the falling babies from The Flash.
Well, sure, but what was that you said about being just moderately above porn level?
I'm just saying, I think a basis of comparison for the audience's sake would be well needed here.
Fair enough. So that again, it's a minor gripe, but it's something I wanted to bring up. The score doesn't help this movie as much as it should. It's not bad, but the score is meant to carry a lot of weight in tension-building movies, and if it doesn't quite hit the mark, then you tend to feel it, and I felt it a little bit here. So that, again, is a minor point of problem. I got a little tired of the jingling keys.
Did you?
Because there's a lot of, hey, remember the first movie when we had, the theme song? Hey, remember the second movie when we had the logs? Remember there's a lot of that throughout this, and I get wanting to have Easter eggs and callbacks to the previous movies. I really do. It just got to be a little bit much by the end of it. Like, hey, remember that time when the blonde girl got hit by the bus and it was kind of startling? Well, here's someone almost getting hit by a bus.
It's actually funny. Sorry to interrupt. All these movies, I don't know if this one does, but they all take place in New York. I think the most unrealistic part of this whole franchise is when Terry got hit by the bus in the first one, that the Long Island bus went over 25 miles per hour. I'm sorry to interrupt you, Don.
No, you are not wrong on that one.
I have to say, just to piggyback on that, and then I'll throw it back to Robert. The other thing I laughed really hard at, and it's in the trailer, but out of context, it doesn't strike you as funny. In context, with the build-up, it's so much more hilarious to me when the 10-pound blonde girl gets hit by a rogue soccer ball and gets knocked into the trash can. I mean, this movie has a sense of humor, and then there is a duck amuck level sense of humor where it feels like it feels like Bugs Bunny is actively like drawing this out and causing these things to happen. All we needed was for one character to turn into like a walking flower with screwball on its tail, and it would have been perfect.
Yeah. So there's block that. We're about to get serious glare from over there. So that's a little bit of an issue for me. Again, it just got to be a little bit much with the references because there's a lot of them, especially if you like marathoned the other 5 in preparation for this, and I'm not saying I did. I'm not saying I didn't either.
What?
Were you?
Robert is an international man of mystery. You cannot know Robert Winfrey. He is both the alpha and the omega. He is the vertical and the horizontal. He is a man of pickles and quagmires. Keep going, Mr. Mystery.
There's just a lot of references that becomes a little bit overwhelming.
Move it on.
There's some good. Again, there's some good kills. There's some appropriately gory stuff. That's a lot of fun. I think if I had another kind of problem here, I didn't feel tremendous sympathy for any of the victims. And maybe that's a me problem. Other people's mileage will vary.
Let me touch on that since you brought it up. I almost lost my patience with the eldest brother, but then they made him somewhat sympathetic, and then the fact that he was trying to go through heaven and hell, heaven and earth to save his brother. So when he finally dies, I actually kind of felt bad for him, and nobody else is really bad in this. You know, nobody. That was another distinction from the previous movies. Is nobody in this movie is particularly a bag of dicks. They're either reacting negatively in a situation that warrants a negative reaction, or they're just decent people caught in a terrible situation. Which was a nice change of pace because I really hate watching terrible people get massacred for 90 minutes.
I don't know. I just would have preferred at least one of them feeling more sympathetic than they were. I never got to the point where I was really rooting for them. And again, some other people will feel differently than I do, but this is my review of it. And I think that was a little bit of a struggle for this. On the plus side, of course we end it with another log kill, which I popped for. I'm not going to lie. That kind of cracked me up a little bit when, oh no, we're outrunning the train derailment. And okay, we got through most of the cars, but trains are really long and carry a lot of things. And then coming over this wreckage is the back end of the train that still has enough momentum. And the lumber gets launched over and just crushes the last two.
Well, rolls on the stairs. Sorry.
No, that's very true. There had to be log.
From Blammo.
Indeed, they went Blammo. I think the last thing I want to say here, and this will be on a little bit more of a serious note. Tony Todd kind of saves this movie in the heart respect because he's on here very briefly, but
let me tell you how I kept waiting for the room that he was walking into with the box to just blow up. And heartfelt speech and sad times and very negative things and that's all I have to say and I bid you good day, people. And he walked into the room and it just blows up.
That would be very Final Destination of them to do that. If
I kept
that happened.
waiting for it. I was like, or like he opened the door and it would blow out.
This was not written by Vince McMahon.
Yeah, I only interrupted you to say that because I just remember thinking that whole time he's going to walk into the next room and it's going to blow up mysteriously.
No, this was not written by Vince McMahon.
Okay.
So gets a little bit of dignity.
Boom.
Thankfully.
You're not wrong. But this being his last movie, and him when he showed up on screen, I looked at him and went, "Oh man, you were they've come out and said he was really close to the end at this point." I don't mean this negatively, but he does look it. He looks like a guy right at the end of cancer.
Yep.
But even under those conditions, he still has enough screen presence and gravitas to bring weight to what he does on screen. And God bless him for it. Look, I've said before, there's a handful of actors that are built in a lab for the horror genre. Tony Todd's one of them.
Yeah, he's on the Mount Rushmore with Robert Englund.
Yeah, he's a big guy with big presence and that wonderful voice and the ability to be menacing and the ability to be captivating at the same time and just again built for the genre. Just ready-made in a lab, built for the genre. And him getting to actually have a proper send-off is a rarity in any of these things. So credit to all of them for that. He made the most of. He was the only connective tissue to this whole franchise for a long time. Was Tony Todd's going to show up and be enigmatic and kind of scary? And it was nice to see him again. And it sucks that he's gone. I said that when he passed. That one kind of hurt because was so good, but. So him bringing a little bit.
This you can reference.
Yeah, Shay Tate, I'll go ahead and say this. Tony Todd's voice is hot chocolate on a cold night, and yes. He was selected as for Candyman for a reason. because there's a lot of just voice work that he does, and it has to be like hypnotic and resonant and rhythmic. And I think I mentioned this when we did the Candyman like remake / reimagining. You know, him only showing up at the very end was a crying shame, because Tony Todd is so much of what makes that franchise work, and they didn't find an appropriate replacement. But yeah, we got some good kills. I always take that. We got some fun Rube Goldberg mechanics out of some of this. There's decent tension building. You know, you mentioned you never quite got to the point where you're like, get on with it. I was this close to it with 2 scenes. The opening bit, you know, where we get our premonition sequence, that drug a little bit for me. But again, by the time we actually get to like, oh, things are rolling, I was, again, real close to being like, all right, what are we doing here? And the barbecue scene, I thought, just drug a little bit. Not a whole lot, but, you know.
I can't speak to it. I ran away like a sissy Mary.
I know. It's okay. Can I tell you, the rake under the trampoline bothered me more than the glass?
Okay.
Because I've seen a lot.
Let me tell you.
I've never seen that one in particular,
Mhm.
but I grew up around a lot of trampolines, and I've seen people do really stupid stuff on them.
Let me tell you how one of the things I was thinking about this with reference to our discussion of the substance and how the close-up shots of what's his nuts, Dennis
Quaid.
Dennis Quaid eating the shrimp was to signal what was to come with the substance, and there's a lot, and that's one of the things I think also this movie does well. Like let me tell you how if we don't get 10 better movies than this might end up being in my top 10, which is going to be really funny. It's like this, Warfare Companion, and in Nanas. But this movie does a great job of signaling and really like amping up the tension, and that's the thing that stayed with me through the whole movie.
Yeah. Well, again, these movies are all about building tension once you know we're in a scene where somebody's going to die.
Yeah.
So it's a lot of you, the viewer, trying to put together the pieces of exactly how we get from A to B. And it does a decent job of that. Again, that one scene just drug a little bit for me, but not enough that it was a giant detractor. And then...
Any final thoughts, Robert?
You know, I don't know if they're probably going to try and continue this franchise in some capacity, because this is the kind of thing that you could theoretically do like one every 18 months-ish, fairly regularly, and just kind of recycle a lot of stuff. And yeah, there's diminishing returns, but at the same time, if you appropriately budget it.
Well, we'll talk about that in literally a minute, because this thing broke all kinds of records. I want to give, because you and I have been talking for a while, Mick first, and then Zach, and then we're going into the money. Mick, anything you want to respond to? Anything you want to piggyback on? Anything you want to retort?
Final Destination is definitely built to give you anxiety, and they did that. They did it again, I should say, like the log truck thing, and then bringing it back in the 6th movie. Like it's built to make you think about that every time a situation similar happens to you.
Anxiety, the movie. Zach, take me home, baby doll.
No, that's Beau is Afraid.
Well, this movie has officially made me afraid of everything.
Does that include your props?
You.
Well said.
All
right,
your rubber chicken is going to come get you.
God. All right, folks.
Terrified of pennies now. I did not vote for Lincoln.
You're suddenly very much on board with Trump shutting down the production of the penny.
Here comes the money.
We're in the money. We're in the money.
Yes, now. Thought I fixed that earlier. Alrighty. On a budget of $105.7 million. Sorry, I take that back. On a budget of $50 million at the time of this recording, this thing has made an amazing, an astounding, a quite lovely, an incredible $105.7 million. Cover your ears. For those of you who only come on because Zach or Mick are here and have never seen the show before, that's how we celebrate movies that do well.
I was going to say, yeah, it struck me more and more the irony of us using a literal bomb explosion to celebrate a movie, whereas we have a plane crash for a movie that bombs.
Nothing on this show makes any sense, Robert. Nothing.
And the points don't matter, I know.
I'm 3 ducks in a suit.
I'm just 3 raccoons in a suit. Anyway, as of May 19th, 2025, Final Destination's Bloodlines has grossed $51.6 million in the U.S. and Canada and $54.1 million in other territories for a worldwide total of $105.7. In the U.S. and Canada, Bloodlines was released alongside Hurry Up Tomorrow, brought to you by Music's Greatest Monster, The Weeknd, and
He's up there.
And was projected to gross 35 to 40 million from over 3,000 theaters in its opening weekend. The film made $21 million on its first day, including an estimated $5.5 million from Thursday night previews. It went on to debut $51 million, finishing first at the box office. Its opening weekend was the biggest for the franchise ever, even adjusted for inflation. I don't know why I'm doing haunted hands. Best thing. Ooh, inflation.
It did well.
The best thing, the Final Destination, which was 27.4 million opening weekend in 2000 and min. Alrighty. The Weekend, Final Destination was number 1, knocking Thunderbolts from 1 to 2, and I can't believe
it like massacred Thunderbolts.
Well, not only that, but I think can we also look at the fact that it was number 1 for 3 weeks in a row, because we didn't do last week because I was with Nick and Mac doing the triple feature. So,
hey, if we want to talk Thunderbolts, we have to talk about how it opened softer than Brave New World and is not at this point projected to surpass it.
Nice. It's quite the bomb. I'm not playing the sound. Sinners, which apparently is everyone's favorite movie this year that we didn't cover because we have our finger right on the pulse of the culture. We will get to it later in the year when everyone's forgotten about it.
Pretty much.
Yeah. So that dropped from 2 to 3. A Minecraft movie 3 to 4, and I believe that's on streaming now. The Accountant 4 to 5. Hurry Up Tomorrow debuted at 6 and will be out of theaters promptly. Friendship opened up in a bunch more theaters, so that would jump from 13 to 7. Clown in a Cornfield dropped from 5 to 8. Until Dawn 8 to 9, and The Amateur jumped up a spot from 9 to 10 in its 6th week. Shadow Force in its 2nd week dropped from 6 to 11. No one gives a 2 shits and a fuck about that movie. Warfare fell from 11 to 14. Snow White, which I think is now streaming, fell from 12 to 15. Yeah. And that's really it for anything that matters. That was the weekend that was. Worldwide on a dime, baby. Not a whole lot of movement here, but Nija still at the top of the heap with almost 2 billion worldwide. A Minecraft petering out at 929, didn't quite make $1 billion, but it was close. Captain America Brave, and then we dropped substantially.
$500 million.
Good gravy.
The $500 million drop from 2 to 3.
Yeah.
Jesus.
You have Captain America Brave New World at 415. Thunderbolts eking up to 326.
90 and change million behind that. So again, Thunderbolts might get past Brave New World, but not by much. And
it'd be funny if both of them get surpassed by Sinners.
I would pop.
Sinners is at 316. Snow White in the top 10 just because every other movie this year has bombed.
Yeah, like Snow White pulling in $204 million is not. It's still losing money at 204.
So much so they've killed the remakes for the near future, and thank God for that.
You know what? As the meme goes, maybe we judged Rachel Zegler a little too harshly. She might have fallen on that bullet for a lot of us.
No. Our great Messiah, Rachel Ziegler, up on that cross for us. Anyway, Dogman at number 7.
I was just thinking about Thanos looking at Gamora, going, "Daughter, I might have judged you too harshly."
Bridget Jones on just the non-U.S. market alone is 138 at number 8. Mickey 17 at 131, and Final Destination debuting in the top 10 at 105. Good for you, Final Destination.
So it'll probably wind up beating Dogman. It might get past Snow White.
Here are the movies doing currently better than a 20-year-old movie named Star Wars Episode 3 Revenge of the Sith. One of them days, Until Dawn.
Yeah, he means worse.
Worse, sorry. Flight Risk, Black Bag, Companion, Novocaine, Wolfman, Hard Eyes, Warfare. Woof. It's like a murderer's row of movies that just bombed. I mean, some of these might be doing better than I'm giving them credit for because they have low budgets, but I mean, not a single one of these over 50 million, except for one of them days, which we just reviewed, both Mick Mac and I.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah. All right, so that is the money.
Again, a lecture on the evils of check cashing locations.
All right, this weekend coming. So, as fun as Bloodlines was, it's got stiff competition next weekend as we've got Lilo and Stitch in a sissy slap fight with Mission Impossible: Final Reckoning, and
that seems to not be being well received thus far.
Which one? Mission Impossible?
Yeah.
Yeah, I stand by and will double down on my assertion that Lilo and Stitch wins the weekend and will do very well financially. I have not heard a single bad thing about it, and by now we would have. We would have heard that Lilo and Stitch sucks dick if it did. But no one seems to be saying that. So, and I think Lilo, and if my kids and other kids are any indication, and actually I want to get Mick's opinion on this because Mick is practically a kid. What's the big fascination with Lilo and Stitch? Why is it so popular, and why is my assertion correct that because I didn't ruin it, Lilo and Stitch will hit a grand slam, knock it out of the park?
It should be cray.
I don't know why it's getting so popular. Because, I mean, it could be just going back on the nostalgia thing, and they're making live actions of literally everything.
Mm-hmm.
Because I remember when, Lilo and Stitch, of course, has their original movie, but then they went off and had a TV show, and Stitch.
Oh, yeah, the other 625 experiments.
Yeah, you got to meet, like, all of them and see more characters. I don't know.
Like Pokemon.
I have to assume the very thing that made Stitch popular and part of the cultural fabric of this country is also the same thing that made Baby Yoda popular, and made them one of the things that made the Mandalorian.
I'm gonna push back on that just a hair.
I don't know. I think this country has an obsession with puppies.
They see something cute and decide to worship it.
Yes.
Honestly.
Well, the thing with Stitch was the marketing campaign for Stitch from the original animated Lilo and Stitch was actually genius.
Yes.
It was him messing up old Disney movies.
Yeah, it was like him scaring the shit out of princesses and whatnot, if I remember correctly.
I thought current Disney made fun of old Disney movies.
Yeah, he ruined the magic carpet ride in Aladdin. It was deliberately described as the black sheep of the Disney family.
Right.
And I think that's more what kind of gravitated towards his.
I think Lilo and Stitch holds the rare distinction of being one of the few non-Disney princess movies to resonate with in all four quadrants with all ages of people. Like, if I remember correctly, Lilo and Stitch may not have been, Frozen at its time in terms of box office, but it has had a lasting effect in the culture. To the point where now I think, as long as it's paid its proper due, people will come in droves to see it and will experience the nostalgia and they have their hearts warmed by a well-made movie respecting the character they like. Go ahead, Zach.
I was just gonna say that maybe because the story was so personal, and also Stitch is really cute because Stitch still sells a lot of merchandise.
Oh yeah,
that's hot topic. A lot of Stitch stuff. Stitch be cray, yo.
So I think it's gonna beat the living shit out of Mission Impossible: Final Reckoning. Let me tell you how I have not been impressed with the marketing of this movie. They are relying entirely on old footage. They don't really use that killer Mission Impossible theme anymore. This feels like the encore for a performance that has already ended. And like we just we're gonna come out and do separate ways, and then we're going home. We're done.
There's a lot of, again, some of the reaction I've seen is that there's a lot of flashbacks. There's a lot of reuse of older Mission Impossible movies, because this is meant to be our big hurrah, the final Mission Impossible movie. So here's your big nostalgia trip, including like, hey, remember when? Hey, remember Philip Seymour Hoffman? Remember
Tom Cruise running?
God, this movie franchise is so old. How old is it? It's so old. In the second one, Metallica was still in their alternative short hair phase.
It predates 9/11.
Yes. Really? I'll look it up really quickly, but
the first one comes out in the 90s.
Yeah, I'm gonna go look up the year that it came out.
Dude, I was living in Oregon at the time. That's like 93.
Getting dysentery, 1996. God, I was like a sophomore in college.
I was in kindergarten.
I wasn't born.
Yes.
So again, we're celebrating like 30 years of this.
Yeah.
You know what? I might die on this hill alone, but I still think Mission Impossible 2 is probably the best of that franchise, because I have a deep affection for John Woo films.
You would be in the minority on that. Everyone
I'm aware.
Likes the one with which dead actor?
Philip Seymour Hoffman, the third one.
That's the one. Yeah, that's the one that everyone universally loves. And then, when he started hanging off airplanes is when that whole franchise takes a turn for the better. But I remember when I wanted to get my kids caught up with Mission Impossible movies, I actually started with the fifth one. Whatever the one is as he's hanging off the plane as it's taken off. Mick, you ever see any of the Mission Impossible movies?
Dorian had me watch the first one.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't seen any of the other ones.
Start with 5 and work your way up to this one. It's worth the trip, because
it doesn't seem like the kind of movie I watch.
It may be. I will tell you the first four. I mean, they have so little in common with the current ones that they're almost a different franchise.
Well, 4 not so. Hang on, 4 is Ghost Protocol, right?
Ugh. I'd have to look again.
Because I think it's like Ghost. Because the first 3 are pretty disconnected in a lot of respects.
Yeah, I was gonna say, when we did the Long Road to Ruin on it, we broke them into 1 and 2 with the first episode, and then we did 3 and 4 on the other one. And I didn't feel like, I feel like they didn't start to have any kind of continuity until the 4th and 5th one.
It starts with again, I think Ghost Protocol is the first one that we really like start building the rest of the team out.
Mm-hmm.
Hang on, let me find
that's when we get Simon Pegg and Ving Rhames and all that.
Well, Ving Rhames. Hang on, Ving Rhames is in the first one.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Ghost Protocol is 4.
Okay. Yeah, I would say 4 into 5 is, like I said, is where the franchise starts telling an overarching story. Any case. They thought they had $1 billion property with this thing, because a couple of movies, it's kind of like the Fast and the Furious, where a couple of movies in between did so well, they thought the momentum would keep building, but it was a combination of things that made that not be true. And I think we're at its end, justifiably so. I'm looking forward to it, but I'm also looking forward to this thing being put to bed for a while. Following Mission Impossible and Lilo and Stitch, we've got the Karate Kid Legends, which honestly, it depends on how well Lilo and Stitch is received, because either that's going to repeat, or then Karate Kid becomes the #1 movie of the weekend, which is then followed by From the World of John Wick Ballerina, which I haven't seen a lot of trailers for lately, and I'm starting to wonder if Lionsgate has lost faith in this thing, and they're just putting it out there to put it out there.
I mean, when you say they've lost faith, here's my sense of Ballerina. It's not going to do as well as a John Wick movie, but I don't think it bombs.
I'd have to see what the budget is on it.
Okay, that's fair. Like depending on the budget, but look, Ana de Armas is not Keanu Reeves. Like, she's not a lead. I mean,
I was gonna say I wouldn't even say that she. I think if this thing had went straight to streaming, that would have been one thing. But to put her in a big budget mainstream feature and think she's going to draw an audience is folly. That's ridiculous.
she's another one of these actors and actresses that like somebody's decided they're going to be a thing, and
she was in Blonde after all. Mick, have you seen Blonde? Blonde is fantastic.
I haven't, but I've seen a lot of stuff on it. I think I've seen clips too.
Blonde's have more fun.
When we're done here, do drugs and watch Blonde. You'll have a great time.
Okay.
Look, I don't have anything against her, but again, this is not the kind of position you should be putting her in.
No. Just to kind of finish up with this bit. After Ballerina, we've got then we've got How to Train Your Dragon, followed by
which is going to win a lot, I think.
I think that one's going to do really well.
Much as I object to its existence,
I'm not saying they didn't use a real dragon. They CGI'd it so they wouldn't have to pay an animal trainer. I'm very disappointed.
You know, dragons are just a step above cats, though, about things you don't want to work opposite if you're an actor.
So I think How to Train Your Dragons repeats, and Pixar is depressed because they're following up How to Train Your Dragon with Elio. And then we get to Megan, and that closes out June. Then we're into July. We have Jurassic World Rebirth, which I think wins its weekend, and then the problem is July is the Final Four, 1997. It's Steve Austin, Bret Hart, Vader, and The Undertaker. We've got, for those of you
one of these things is not like the others.
We've got Jurassic World Rebirth, followed by Superman, followed by I Know What You Did Last Summer, followed by the Fantastic Four. Which
one of these is definitely not like the other. It's not hard to pick the Vader out of that group.
Good big man Vader. Have you guys, I don't know how much Mick or Zach, for the purposes of this discussion, follow movie news, but Fantastic Four is back on set for reshoots, and apparently these are last-minute reshoots because it's not testing well.
That's not good.
No,
So the big kickoff to Phase 6 leading into Avengers Doomsday is stumbling out of the gate. Nick,
we're reshooting it literally weeks out.
Oh my god! Like the trailer looked good. That came out on while I was watching Final Destination. They had the Fantastic Four trailer. It looks good.
Are you? Have you ever read the comic books or anything?
I like the movies. I didn't like that. I didn't like Fan Stick, but I don't think anyone likes that.
Nobody does. If you like Fan Stick, you get Baker acted. That's usually that's the telltale sign. You want to hurt yourself, somebody else, or you like Fan Stick. Off you go.
That's true.
But my question first to Mick, then to Zach: did you guys ever read the comic books? Are you familiar with the previous movies?
I watched the previous ones where what's his name? One of the Chris's.
Chris Evans.
Chris Evans is Johnny Storm.
So I've watched those ones. I have a specific memory of going to Blockbuster, picking that out, and also getting gummy worms. But
okay, so no longing familiarity with the comic book or anything like that. Seeing the movies, they were fine. That about your handle on this? Okay, how about you, Zach?
I like the first two. Well, not the first two. I'm sure they made a billion of them. I like the ones from the 2000s. I thought they were campy fun.
No, there have been a whopping 4 prior to this adaptations in film of the Fantastic Four.
There's the Roger Corman Ashcan movie
that never got released.
Which you can find at comic book conventions. I used to have a copy, but it was never actually released. There's the 2 proper Fox ones, and then there's the Josh Trank disaster piece where the making of the movie was more entertaining than the movie itself. Fan Stick. All of this to say that, and this is the only thing I really wanted to talk about, was how I don't remember where in the timeline this is, in as far as Marvel realizing they were in a fucking nosedive and they had to fix things. So I want to say they had already committed to the chick from Ozark. There was nothing they could do about that, but I feel like they had changed enough of it based on the backlash they were getting from the fans, where I think the early rumors was that this was going to lean heavily on Sue and nobody wants this. I'm not entirely sure, because if they're having to do research and people aren't liking what they're seeing and Marvel's in a panic, this makes me feel like they did put the movie on Sue, that they denuded Reed like they denuded Doctor Strange, and people are going to hate this. And I don't want to go through another Brave New World, another Snow White, and kind of half a Thunderbolts. I don't want to go through another cycle of the angry nerds screaming about how bad Fantastic Four is.
You are okay, Mark. I have to point the following out to you.
I haven't been on the internet lately watching a lot of the stuff, other than the Critical Drinker, who is at least somewhat fair. I'm currently going through withdrawals because I have a different job and I'm not able to watch YouTube all day. So I'm doing better.
I'm just gonna say, you voluntarily put yourself in a lot of that. Like, you say you can't deal with the cycle, like you are Clockwork Orange strapped down and being forced to watch.
I'll give you a better analogy. Like, I work in a newsroom and I can't avoid it. I have to talk about this stuff, which was kind of the point I was making to Dave, is that we are in, at least a third of this show deals with movie news. So I kind of have to be aware of it, but neither him nor you were, and I thought about it after that podcast, neither him nor you are wrong. I don't have to watch every nerd with a YouTube talk about how much they hate the Marvel movies. I can watch something else. I can be aware of the conversation without getting right in there, watching every guy on Friday Night Tights, their own stupid YouTube show, and they're all saying the same goddamn thing. You are correct, sir.
It was a shame. It looked different. It looked like a Marvel movie that was different, but
the aesthetic is very different. The aesthetic is very unique to the MCU. But look, the problem that they're going to run into with this is, if what we're doing is, hey, the whole thing's going to be a commentary on gender in the 60s, and it's all about Sue being pregnant and empowered woman who can do everything, and Reed is just this vestigial appendage to her strong, empowered success story, of course nobody's going to like it.
Also, that's not in any way, shape, or form the Fantastic Four. And if someone but that window of time where it was about Sue and Sue was a badass, that took years, decades. They worked up to it. That character had earned that story. You can't start there. And this is what kills me about modern movies and TV, and then we'll move on from this, unless anyone's got anything further to add, is we take something from canon and we don't bring the context that goes with it.
Yeah.
So it's presented out of context, and then they wonder why it doesn't work. It's like having a tabletop and no legs. The legs have to be there to support this thing. If you don't carry the legs with it, the tabletop just falls on the floor. When you take the Sue as a badass stuff that was legitimately in the Fantastic Four, just like the stuff about She-Hulk, the stuff about a lot of these other characters, and you don't bring the context that led up to it, you're just presenting it at face value and going, look, empowered woman. You like this when it was in the comics.
Yeah, again, we also had 5 years of stuff that led up to it, making it a logical step.
Yeah. So anyway, anything else in the movie news or the current discussion, Mick, you want to add before we move on to critical review?
Nope.
Zach?
I paid $7 for a hot dog at the movie theater.
You should not feel good about that.
It wasn't even that good.
I usually get 2 hot dogs because one dog is just not enough.
Yeah.
I didn't get any hot dogs though when I went this last time. Got my kids candy, got the girlfriend popcorn, but I didn't get any hot dogs, Zach. I did not get any hot dogs.
I had a rum and pineapple.
You know what pineapple?
A rum and pineapple.
Oh, because you can buy alcohol at the theater. Okay, got it. Yes.
I was gonna get chicken nuggets instead, but then I realized, oh yeah, I'm a teacher. I can't afford that.
The food at movie theaters is too goddamn expensive, and it takes too damn long.
Yes.
I can understand if you go to get one of the cheeseburgers or the pretzels or whatever stuff that they have to put in the oven, that I will understand will take a minute, and then it takes an extra 20 minutes because it takes them forever to actually serve people at the theater. But the hot dogs that are just on the rolls, I go to 7-Eleven, they take it right off the roller for me. It's fantastic. You walk into a 7-Eleven, and 30 seconds later, you're full of hot dog. It's amazing. What a country. However, you go to a theater, and you ask for the same piece of meat, on
that
the
you can
same
see on a
mechanism.
roller, almost identical.
Yes, in the same mechanism. And you go, give me that hot dog right there, my good man. And he says, you will wait 20 minutes while I wander around aimlessly.
No,
I
this
have
one's
to-
a special hot dog.
I have to take
Very
the
special.
same hot dog that you
Magic
get
hot
at
dog.
7-Eleven and put it in an oven for no good reason and then give it to you. Give it to you hard. And I'm like, well, I don't understand why we had to go through any of this. Just give me the hot dog. I don't even
Look,
want the bun.
Here's all you. The only things you should buy at a concession stand are popcorn, a soda, and if they have the like packaged candies that you can grab on the way in, grab those. Don't ask those poor people to do anything more than that. They're not qualified.
I want Robert and I to open up a movie theater where we have a complete listing of stuff on the menu, but if anyone orders anything, we hit them with a glass. Just so I can hear them go, he glassed me! And then we give them the popcorn and soda and kick them out of the fucking concession stand. Very violent movie theater that we're going
Put
to
glass in their drink.
Final Destination, the movie theater.
All right.
Look, it will be performance art and it will be an installation and it will work.
Yep.
Oh, that's much different.
All right. Speaking of installations that work, here is the critical review.
Are you ready? No! I said, are you ready?
No, God! No, God, please, no! 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 No!
There's a movie called Jane Austen Wrecked My Life. I'm very
That-
interested in this.
What?
That is an accurate description of my junior year of high school.
There. Speaking of my junior year of high school, it is 93% fresh on the tomato meter, 89% fresh on the fan meter. We dig a little deeper. That stays the same. There is no other alternate button. However, all audiences on the fan meter, negligible difference. It drops to 88.
About the margin of error on one
Yeah.
of those things.
And the AI writes, adding some surprising emotional layers onto the ghoulish bones of Final Destination's mythology, Bloodlines ingeniously executes grisly set pieces with precision and turns impending doom into outrageous fun. Fantastic.
That's not the worst thing I've seen the AI spit out.
That seemed about right. Nick Johnson of Vanyaland. Final Destination Bloodlines is a more than serviceable entry than you'd expect after a decade of dormancy.
You know, any of these that they do resurrect, after, especially after more than 10 years, you do kind of like hold your breath.
The future Xmas Alexis Hana, Jeremy Johns of jeremyjohns.com. It tackles the Final Destination thing from a different angle. I appreciate that.
That's a very tepid pull for the quote there.
Yeah. Speaking of tepid pulls, Lisa Leman of Culturist. This is a standalone feature with distinctly individual charms compared to the previous Final Destination entries.
This is no. This is code for I didn't watch the previous movies, ergo I don't get all the references that are being made.
All right, best friend of the show, William Bibiani of The Wrap, when I can get back to him again.
You hit that button twice, you just scrolled past him.
Did I?
Again, you hit the load more twice, so
I know, but you said I scrolled past. There he
you
is.
did.
Of The Wrap, top critic. We're here for the kills. And again, every single kill in Final Destination Bloodlines is a winner. Every time a head explodes, which is a lot, you'll want to stand up and cheer.
I did not want to stand up and cheer.
I laughed more than cheered.
Local sack of potatoes, Travis Hobson of Punch Drunk Critics. The hard part is finding new ways to shock us. And Final Destination Bloodlines has enough twist to keep us on our toes.
You know, in fairness, the other good thing about this movie, we didn't bring it up a whole lot, but this is a movie that knows what it is and doesn't overstay its welcome. It is fairly well paced and fairly well put together.
You know, for years, we have been toiling in these movie review corridors.
Obscurity. The obscurity of the internet.
The unknown is where we dwell. Yet Joseph Robinson of Fish Jelly Films is on YouTube and on Rotten Tomatoes. The domino-style death sequences should satisfy gorehounds, but the overly long connective tissue plays like a boring family drama. Oh, was this too much movie for you, Joseph
How was
Robinson?
this too much movie for you?
It was too
grief.
complicated.
Yeah.
Too much to think about.
It was too boring. He just wanted to
My head, my tummy hurts.
It just wanted to see kills. All right. Richard Krause of The Richard Krause. Final Destination Bloodlines is a bloody good time at the movie.
I never did.
The screen with gallons of plasma, dark humor, and gives a poignant send-off of the late, great Tony Todd.
Yeah, the last point is accurate, but this does not paint the movie with gallons of viscera. You and I have seen the homages to Sam Raimi, Mark. Like,
so Grace Randolph, Beyond the Trailer. An excellent Final Destination movie. Opening sequence is amazing, and the rest of the movie is both clever and funny, which this franchise is known for. A great movie to see with an audience, very well written, and Richard Harmon is the cast MVP.
absolutely not. She picked a name out of a hat and said so-and-so was the MVP.
The future ex-Mrs. Mick Wanamaker, Emma Wolf of Spooky Astronauts. It's not a masterpiece, but it's a really fun time. Fantastic.
That's a interesting poll again.
The future ex-Mrs. Zach Strobel, Rebecca Johnson of Nerdspin.
Oof.
With a great new cast of characters, applaud-worthy and inventive kills, and just the right amount of story, Final Destination's Bloodlines is not only a worthy addition to the franchise, but one of the best ones.
Yeah, this is not a franchise with a very high bar to clear.
It kind of sounds like they didn't watch the other ones.
A lot of it. Look, is this what this is? I would absolutely argue this is one of the better Final Destination movies. I
What
don't know.
to do with Final Destination? Does it ever end? If they keep saying final.
But
Yes, sir. Alrighty, we'll do one more here and call it a night. Oh my God. Edward Douglas, The Weekend Warrior Substack. The most well-realized installment of the franchise with even more replay value than ever. Sure.
See, I have to question the last part of that sentiment.
Well, folks, this has been just a jolly good time. Glad we got to review this movie. Mick, did you have fun tonight?
I did. It was a lot of fun.
I'm glad you were here. Zach, it's been a long time, my friend. I think the last time you and I were on a podcast was, I don't even remember it. It was like last year.
I think the world was in black and white back then.
Indeed. And we wore the girls with flappers and the men with wide brim hats. We walk like this.
It was look, they just started the notion of the talkies, and who would want to hear an actor talk?
That's right.
You guys are believing movies are going to color? Never was.
Whip it colorized. Alrighty. Yesterday.
You know, the best version of that joke is the reverse, when a bunch of animated cartoons go from color to black and white, and they go, I guess they don't like colored people here.
That's amazing. Speaking of amazing, yesterday was nearly 2.5 hours of the Metal Hammer of Doom jukebox. Mick was there. She witnessed the crime that was time. We reviewed Crowbot. We talked facial piercings. We talked Kiss and Chris Cornell and OnlyFans and told stories, and we had a lot of laughs, and we drank a lot of beer. So
There's always a good Metal Hammer of Doom.
Yes, ma'am. Tomorrow, we love you tomorrow. Alexis Hina will be doing a TV party for Andor with whatever nerd she found to talk about Star Wars that actually give a shit about it.
And you know what? I've heard nothing but good things about seasons both 1 and 2 of Andor.
Listen,
So you know what?
It turned the critical drinker around. I mean, so I think that's high praise. Who has the time? Who has the time
to listen to me whine?
However, I do have time to talk about Apple Cider Vinegar with Alexis Hana. That was a miniseries on Netflix about the whole pantry chick who told everyone she had cancer when she didn't. And then this Thursday,
Always comes back to cancer with this show, doesn't it?
Certainly does, Ollie. This Thursday, it'll just be Mick and I, and we'll be talking a triple feature full of horror movies: The Parenting, Control Freak, and Holland. Holland is weird as fuck. And then this Saturday,
all of those are a little weird.
Yeah. This Saturday, myself and Evan Bevins will be doing a comic strip for The Surrogates, a Robert Venditti book that was made into a Bruce Willis movie. And then,
you know what? Wildly different ending, and boy, does it cast a different pall on the entire story when you change that.
Next week, myself and Jesse and Mick will be talking Pump Up the Volume, SFW and SLC Punk, on Triple Feature. We will be back here for Mission Impossible Final Reckoning, and it'll just be me and Robert. When was the last time that happened?
2 weeks ago.
No, we had Dave. The last time was WrestleMania. I remember it well. And then this will be a fun show. Alexis Haina will be hosting My Children for an on-trial civil court edition, where she will be comparing the original Lilo and Stitch to the remake of Lilo and Stitch. And I've given my son permission to give Alexis the business, so that'll be fun.
Oh, boy.
That'll be an interesting show to watch.
My son is me without the filter. It's fantastic.
The misogyny is no longer casual in his case.
It is. It is intentional. Speaking of intentional, and then a week from Thursday, we'll be doing Long Road to Ruin for the first 3 Karate Kid movies. That'll be myself, in theory, with Sean Comer and Pat Mullen. Assuming
There's
both
one good movie out of those 3.
Assuming both of them actually show up. We'll see. And that's
I tell you what, Mark. Wait, what day is that?
Thursday the 29th.
At the usual time?
At the usual time.
If you desperately need somebody, tag me. I'm familiar enough with that. I can talk about it.
That'll work. Thank you for being on. Thank you, On Deck Man, for being on deck.
I live in the on deck circle. I've got a tent. It's real nice.
Alrighty. Folks, thank you for joining us here on DMU Hollywood for the host of these proceedings, Robert Winfrey, for your fan and all.
You forgot to plug.
Mick, oh, fuck you. Sell your books. Sell your books. I forgot the entire plug section.
You're like, I'm done. Goodbye.
Yeah, I think we're out of here, folks. People are like, what? Yes, please, Zach. Please.
You know,
Please.
Again, life is very precious. You may be making a grilled cheese sandwich and a 50-ton safe might fall on your head. Spend time with your children. Read books to your children. And you know what's better than reading books to children? Reading one of my books to your children. So you can find my name right there. Type it in Google and Amazon. It'll come up. They're not that expensive, and they have good messages.
Okay. What I wanted to say was, please do the plugs that pay you, referencing a song we created about our dear Alexis, but whatever. Mick, do your fucking plugs.
Mark, by the 4th, please, you had to know it was just not going to work.
No, he's going to do it anyway.
That's what she said. Go on, Mick.
So last episode, I did reveal what my OnlyFans was. So if y'all want to subscribe to me, Siren Creates. And my name on there is Mikrin. Other than that, social media.
Her link is in the description of this podcast.
Yes.
That depends on which platform we're on. There's some that are sketchy about linking that site.
Okay.
We'll find out.
Yes, we will.
That will get you removed from YouTube. Just straight up, I'm warning you.
Oh, it's in yesterday's, and we're still there.
Okay, we might be small enough for it not to be much of an issue, but YouTube in general doesn't like.
Good to know.
Links to that kind of content.
Go ahead and keep going, Mick.
That was it.
Fantastic.
Happy to be here. See you on Thursday.
Alrighty. Robert, go ahead and do the plugs that pay you.
That'll be short. I cover mixed martial arts and professional wrestling over at 411mania.com, WWE SmackDown on Fridays, UFC events on Saturdays, and occasionally I pinch it on other events. So last week was a mediocre edition of SmackDown, and we had a UFC event on Saturday. That was for warehouse fights. Okay. Reports.
I'm going to make Erica watch the next fight that's on ABC.
Which one is that?
That is... I'm going to yell at you for doing too long of a plug section, and it's different when I stop you. It is UFC on ABC, Hill versus Roundtree Jr.
That'll be a choice.
She's never watched the UFC one, and I want her to watch one during the day so she can't fall asleep.
Given their pacing, that still might be an issue.
Fair.
But you can watch the same 8 commercials over and over and over again on loop, and it drives you to insanity. It really does.
Speaking of driving to insanity, finish your plugs.
So yeah, again, full review. This full written reports in the MMA and wrestling zones of 411 Mania. There's a podcast that I host, the 411 Ground and Pound MMA podcast. This week was a look back at UFC on ESPN Plus 114. And some news of the week, like we finally know the main event for International Fight Week, which they really pushed off announcing as long as they possibly could. And some other fights being announced. Patchy Mix coming over to the UFC because PFL is a clown show. And yeah, stuff like that. So give that a listen if you're so inclined. This week there is no UFC event, so there's that. But I will be covering SmackDown on Friday, and on Sunday I will be covering AEW's Double or Nothing because
Oh, you poor bastard.
somebody has to.
All right, folks. Well, you poor bastard, somebody has to is the phrase that pays here on the Rattlevision Broadcasting Network. So, for the lovely Mick Wanamaker, for the punny Zach Strobel, and for the dying every moment Robert Winfrey, I am finally in a good mood. Be well, be safe, and behave.